I mean, and then that comes back to the relationship building and the networking aspect of the sport.
Yeah.
You grow as you learn, and I think if someone has blinders on, their inability to grow within the sport is going to hinder them in the long run.
Episode 142 featured Mike Rittelman, the Director of Player Personnel at the College Gridiron Showcase. We spoke about the value of taking failure as a learning opportunity as long as you maintain relationships. We also talked about the values learned from football and how you can apply those to future opportunities. Also excited to collaborate with our friends over at Coach and Share, the go-to online marketplace for coaches to buy and sell products. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode today. It's really insightful, so let's dive right in.
Game of football has played a huge part of my life. Played at Hopewell High School in Western Pennsylvania, then got to go on to Waynesburg University, started 3 years at defensive end there, got to coach there for a year. And then I've been coaching high school ball now for 9 years, so a total of 10 years I've been coaching. And then with CGS, I started out as an intern in 2016, worked my way up to the role of director of scouting and player personnel. What I do, I help with our two co-founders, Craig Red and Jose Jefferson, build a roster about 300 players from all over the country and also Canada, and international players as well. Come into Fort Worth, Texas, and we hold an all-star event there. This past year, this past January, we had all 32 NFL teams, all 9 CFL teams. The UFL was there representing the IFL. We had 154 scouts in total. So, it's a great event. Great, the showcase talent from all over the country, and lucky to be in this role.
That's really cool. So, when exactly does that showcase happen?
Yeah, it's the first week in January, so a couple days after New Year's Day. So we did it through the 5th through the 7th this year. Again, we're hoping to keep the same date next year, but yeah, we're the first All Star game out of the gate for the All Star game season. With the Hula Bowl, East West Shrine game, and the Senior Bowl as well.
So, you're going back to back between the showcase, AFCA, other
Yeah,
conferences
yeah.
out there.
Oh man, it was a blast. I got to do CGS was Fort Worth, and then I worked with a company called Sports Connect, and which is under Stack Sports, and I got to go out there for AFCA, and got to connect with a lot of coaches talked to throughout the country, and it was a great event from Fort Worth to Nashville.
Definitely. So, going back to your playing days at Waynesburg University, being
Yeah.
a small Division III guy can definitely relate to that playing at Gettysburg College. So, how has that impacted your coaching career up until this point?
Oh, you know what? It's a great experience. I actually got to coach there as well. Got to learn the recruiting aspect. Really learn the X's and O's part. Or, for as a player, you think you know football. Then when you get into that coaching role, you're like, wow, I didn't know squat. So it's that has helped me throughout my coaching career as well. Looking back where I've came from, and then each year growing as a coach and learning those different aspects.
Yeah, and it's definitely all about perspective, I think, especially knowing not knowing what you don't know as a
Yeah.
player is one thing, and it's totally different compared to coaching.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah. And I got into coaching a little bit, not quite at the college level, 7th and 8th grade, right when I graduated
Oh
from
yeah,
college.
yeah,
And it's the same thing. You just have to have that different mindset and that different perspective when you are
absolutely.
coaching. Um, so what can you talk more about like your role as the director of scouting and player personnel for the
Yeah,
showcase?
yeah, absolutely. So my role, and again, like I mentioned before, I'm working hand in hand with our two co-founders. Building that roster, and our process starts in late July, early August, where we're building our board, and that's from the FBS, FCS, D2, D3, NAIA level, Canadian players at the Canadian colleges in Canada, even a couple international players we've had in the past. So we're building out a board of 500 plus players, and then throughout that process, we're talking as a team, and we have a couple scouts in our group as well. Looking across the country, we're winding down, we're whittling down that number of 500 plus players. We're bringing it down to a solid group between 250 and 300. To bring to Fort Worth. and showcase in front of professional football teams.
So what are some of the attributes, type of things that you look for when you do whittle that list down to 500 guys?
Yeah, so I mean, there's talent everywhere if you go looking for it. So especially at the lower levels like D2, D3, you're looking for that athlete that stands out. Okay, all conference type of player, even all American. That's standing above the competition he's playing at. You look at height, weight, speed, attributes, length, all that. But again, what makes that player stand out? So you're looking for that what's going to move the needle for those professional teams, the NFL, the CFL, the UFL, the IFL? What's going to move the needle for them to take an interest in that player?
Thanks again to our friends over at Coach and Share for sponsoring today's podcast. I checked out the website and they have a lot of interesting products from guides to templates. Definitely check it out. It's called coachingshare.com. Obviously, being a coach, I'm sure you have a great understanding of those types of things. So, what?
I I like to think so. Some days, I'm like, oh man, I got to work on this.
No. So, being a scout. So, like, basically, you're a scout, right? For the
You,
for the
you know,
showcase.
I I want to call myself a scout because I'm not wearing I'm not scouting for a team, and that's um we're trying to put together an event and trying to build a roster and everything like that. So I'm trying to help an event you know have a successful week showcasing these players' talents.
Gotcha. So not quite the same, but obviously you have to
Y-
have some
y-
of the same skill sets for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, you have some of the same aspects, but again, it's you wear a lot of different hats throughout the event.
For sure. And going back 10 years when you were just getting started, like in your coaching career, would you be able to share with the audience, like, what are maybe the top 2 to 3 things that you learned over your 10-year career that you would want to know if you could go back in time 10 years?
Learn to shut up and listen. That's one. You know, I think when you're young, you just got to shut up and listen. Um, another thing is learn a different position outside your comfort zone. I've been a line guy, coaching the offensive defensive line. Branch out to other positions. To learn that aspect, the whole football grand scheme of football.
Yeah. And a lot of people I talk to, that's one of the biggest things that they always bring up is just having that perspective of the other side of the ball. If maybe
Yeah,
you're like, let's say you're an offensive line coach typically, or you played offensive line, but you're going to know so much more if you just have that understanding of what maybe the defensive line is doing
yeah,
in a certain scenario. So I totally
absolutely.
agree there.
No, totally agree.
Gotcha. And as we're kind of wrapping up, coach, any last words that you would want to share with the audience today about yourself or just in general?
Yeah, always love connecting with great coaches. Always happy to connect on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Talk ball. The game of football is all about, in my mind, about building relationships, connecting with other great coaches, recruiting staff members, scouts, whatever. Always willing to chat ball. You can always hit me up on those on social media. But yeah, and I love building those relationships. The game of football has brought me so much joy. And I love talking about seeing the sport grow each and every year.
Yeah. And it really is something crazy to see. Like, even from the time that I was graduating high school, which to me doesn't feel that long ago, 2017.
Oh
Um,
man, he caught me by 7 years. I'm 2010, man. Oh,
gotcha.
making me feel old. Making me feel old.
But even in that short amount of time, less than 10 years, like
Yeah.
things have changed so much with the
Oh,
transfer portal,
without a doubt.
NIL, and actually that brings up one last point that I wanted to
Yeah.
say, coach. Like, just I think it's so important for coaches to always stay with the times and be
Yep.
innovative and not just get set in your ways because
Absolutely.
maybe something worked one year, that doesn't mean it's always going to work the next year.
I agree with you 110%.
For sure.
110%. You learn to adapt and evolve. each year. And that's the great thing about football. The learning aspect, the learning of the different schemes, the techniques. Learning from other coaches how they see something. How will they align to a formation or something like that. I mean, and then that comes back to the relationship building and the networking aspect of the sport.
Yeah,
You grow as you learn, and I think if someone has blinders on, their inability to grow within the sport is going to hinder them in the long run.
exactly. And the really cool thing about it too is failure is never final in football specifically.
Right.
You can fail, you can get fired, you can have a terrible season, and no matter what, you can. I mean, unless you burn bridges, as long as you keep relationships with people, I mean, you can. You always have another shot. There's always next year.
Try
You
to
know,
avoid the burning bridges
unless
part.
there's one of those terrible situations. But that's one of the cool things about that I think is really cool about the game.
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you there. And again, the relationship building, the networking aspect. That's why I look forward to meeting new people. And the game of football again has done so much for me, and and it's done a lot of great things for everyone else as well.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right there. For me, I was able to do this business because of football, have a
Yeah,
great education, go to Gettysburg College because of football. So there's so many great things that I've been able to do because of the game. And it's awesome
absolutely.
just hearing about what other people have too.
No, absolutely. No, and I appreciate you having me on today. This is awesome. I think what you're doing, connecting with coaches, is awesome. So keep it up.
Awesome. Well, coach, awesome. Really pleasure talking with you today. Thanks again for being on and best of luck as you continue with your off season.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Have a good one.